Hey, y'all, welcome back to Mountain Murders Offbeat. I'm Heather.
And I'm Dylan.
Greetings and salutations, Dylan.
Hello.
How are you today?
I'm doing wonderful.
You're wonderfully well.
Yeah, I'm doing very good.
Man, there's a lot of true crime news happening, and we've been kind of waiting till the end of the episode to discuss the latest in true crime news, but so many breaking stories that we should touch on those right away.
Yeah, I agree. There's a couple of kind of bombshells, really.
Well, the first is big news in the Scott Peterson case. He has been resentenced to life in prison after being spared the death penalty.
Oh, wow. I mean, hell, how long's it been anyway? He's been sitting on death row. I mean, how does that doesn't even work, right?
He was convicted in 2005 of 2 counts of first-degree murder for killing his wife Lacey and their unborn son Connor. And that's when he was sentenced to death row. He's been on death row for years. Then in 2020, he had some major legal victories. The first victory was in August when his death penalty sentence was overturned, meaning that he would face a new penalty phase trial. The second victory came in October when the California Supreme Court ruled that a lower court should take a look at the case again to determine whether his guilty verdict should be overturned altogether. So, in court on Wednesday, today, a California judge heard arguments and sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
Oh, my God. They should just shoot him, dude.
Now, if you recall this case, I'm sure all of our true crime listeners know exactly who Scott Peterson is. He is a big douchebag. But to refresh your memory on this case, because it was some years ago, it was December 23rd of 2002 that Peterson claims that, it was December 24th. He claims that he went fishing and that was the last time he saw his wife at like 9:30 in the morning, and he went fishing at the Berkeley Marina in California. He said she was watching a TV show, getting ready to like take the dog to the park, maybe bake some cookies. And then, of course, when he came home, she was nowhere to be found.
And he had no idea what happened to his poor wife. That's why he was so adamantly out there searching for her. Wait a minute.
Yeah, well, when he was questioned that evening, he was just like dead calm. Her family was super distraught about her disappearance, and he just seemed so casual. He was people described it as being polite but arrogant, a little irritable. I mean, he did not seem like a man who was crushed or greatly disturbed that his wife had disappeared. And there seemed to be like a commotion in the house a bit as well.
Yeah, he just seemed like a guy who was didn't really want to deal with all this flim-flammery and just wanted to be left alone. And then obviously we all had front row seats to the Scott Peterson show that followed.
Yeah, it was on April 13th of 2003 that a couple walking their dog found the decomposing body of a small baby in a marshy area of the San Francisco Bay, which was north of Berkeley. And then later they found the torso of a pregnant woman wearing beige pants and a maternity bra on the eastern shore of the bay. It was along a rocky shoreline of the same park, about a mile away from where the baby's body was found.
My God.
Yeah.
How do you do that to your own people, especially?
About 5 days later, on April 18th, they did some DNA testing that confirmed that it was the body of Lacey Peterson and her son, who was to be named Connor. It was horrific. And then, of course, it came out that Scott was having an affair. And it was like the entire time his wife was missing with their unborn child, he was texting this girlfriend like that he was in Paris having a New Year's Eve celebration or some shit. I mean, he was just full of shit.
So he's lying to her and not even concerned about his, supposedly he should be concerned that his wife and unborn child are missing. His pregnant wife.
Yeah, the guy's a dirtbag. And of course, he's been trying to appeal this, and I guess there's been some evidence. His defense attorneys have been trying to point to that, like, oh, he's not guilty, he didn't do this. But, I mean, the guy's he's a sociopath. He's a piece of shit.
Yeah, even all these years later, I haven't heard anything about him accepting responsibility or, any admissions that I know of.
Then he went on the run. if you recall, like he was in California and they believed he was trying to like maybe make his way to Mexico or something, and he had dyed his hair, and they found him on a golf course somewhere down around like San Diego.
Sweating out some Just for Men.
Probably.
God, what a piece of shit.
So we'll see how that plays out, but yeah,
So he got his death penalty reduced back down to life.
life, yeah.
So I guess in a sense that is, even though, I mean, my God, he's been on death row for how many years now, right? So it doesn't really work anyway. But I guess for him, that's a victory. I guess if he wants to live in prison till he dies.
Yeah, I guess so. And, folks who think that he's innocent claim that he was basically tried in the court of public opinion because of his affair with Amber Frey. That was the girlfriend. And she was a victim in all of this as well. She didn't know he was married.
Well, yeah. That's, people are always like, oh my God, that person. But a lot of times the other person is unaware of your situation and being lied to.
Yeah, exactly. But, they're like, oh, well, everybody said he was guilty. There's no evidence, blah, blah, blah. But, I mean, I think the guy's just a piece of shit.
I think he is, and at least he won't be walking the street and can't harm anyone outside of prison, right? And I'm surprised no one's harmed him, or have they? Yeah. Maybe they beat the shit out of him every chance they get.
Maybe someone steps on his toes when he's in line getting his fruit cocktail scooped down on his little lunch tray.
Oh, dude, what if it's just all like really minor inconveniences, but it's just constant every day, all year long, every year? Like people just like cut line in front of you, or
they put his head in the toilet and give him like a little swirly or whatever.
Or they tear the last 5 pages out of the 600-page book you've been reading, and then you don't know what happened. Ooh, that would piss me off right there. Would that make you mad?
Would it?
Oh, yeah.
Now I know.
Don't do it, girl.
You have some true crime news for us as well, Dylan.
I don't have all the deets, but I do have some very fresh breaking news that came across me hand computer before we started recording today.
Your hand computer?
Yep.
Okay.
Out of Columbus, Ohio, a horrible event has happened. At least 2 gunmen walked up to a motor vehicle in an apartment complex in Columbus, Ohio, and opened fire. As it stands now, there's 1 adult, 2 children dead. And police are obviously following leads and investigating, trying to get more information. I don't know for a fact, but it seems it may be public housing apartment complex. So dare I say this is some kind of revenge, retribution, or something drug related. I hate to say that, but why else would, I don't know. I
don't know. It seems to be, police right now are claiming that it's an unprovoked attack. They were sitting in a parked car, and I do have more information, Dylan. It's actually 3 victims, as you mentioned, identified by Columbia police as a 22-year-old named Charles Wade, 9-year-old Demetrius Walneal, and 6-year-old Londin Walneal. The 2 younger were siblings, and they were pronounced dead at the scene. This happened at about 6:15 yesterday, which was Tuesday. It was outside of Winchester Lakes Apartments, and it seems these 2 armed suspects just walked up and opened fire without any warning or provocation.
Oh my God.
It's really scary. We live in such a dangerous world. It's frightening.
Yeah, so there you are in the car with your 2 children, 2 young children, and someone just walks up and opens fire to multiple people.
Yeah, Wade was not the biological father of these young children, but he was known to them and to their mother. So I'm not sure, details probably haven't really been released yet to say, this was her boyfriend, or maybe he was just, a family friend or whatever. This is terrible. These are they're babies.
Yeah.
I just don't know how anyone could be that callous and cruel.
No, to do that to anyone, and I don't know if they knew the children was there, not that, you're still walking up and shooting someone. You know someone's in the car, right?
There's been a lot of gun violence in Columbus, Ohio.
They have had a surge of homicides.
A lot of deadly shootings. This raises the city's homicide count to 186 in a single year. That is a record. And there's still 3 weeks remaining in 2021.
My God.
And the police chief basically said, this is unacceptable. I'm pissed. It's getting tiresome. This gun violence has to stop.
Damn, I wonder what's fueling that violence there in Columbus.
I don't know. I mean, is there like an economic issue? Is it drug related violence? I mean, so many communities have been impacted by the opioid epidemic
It's
and
true.
just, the gun violence. I mean, it just seems like it's prevalent in a lot of big cities.
Now, I've got to say, even in our area in Buncombe County, the county over Asheville, there's such a huge amount of people influxing, moving into the area. And we've discussed this the other day. The violence around here and murder, death by gun has went through the roof as well.
It seems like every couple of days when I check our local news, there is a report of a shooting or homicide in Asheville. It has become a very unsafe place.
It's true, and I have a friend, and we were discussing this, and like he pointed out, anytime you have all these people moving into an area, for one thing, they bring their own bad habits, or they may not all be good people. So there's that maybe adding to possible violence in your area, and also they bring their use of recreational drugs or their drug addictions, which grows the drug market in your area, makes it bigger, and then in turn you have people fighting for control of that very market.
Like
So
turf wars
turf
almost.
wars are controlling, the drugs, and make you have all this extra money being made, and people fight over that, no matter where you're at.
Well, this is really scary, and I hope they are able to make an arrest soon.
Yeah, I think they should fast track those two individuals, whoever they are, to death row and kill them.
Yeah, it breaks my heart.
Because whether or not they were aware of those children being in the car, and of course, the man as well, he didn't deserve to be done like that, I'm guessing. And their actions caused the death of two young kids for just absolutely no reason.
Especially this time of year, just before the holidays. It's just heartbreaking.
It
I
is.
just don't understand how anybody could be like that.
Well, we will follow that up. But now we need to get on to this incredible, interesting story you have for Offbeat.
Well, Dylan, we're going to start an Offbeat series on conspiracy theories and various things surrounding our founding fathers,
Oh my gosh.
the establishment of Washington, D.C., and we're going to be talking about ghosts, the occult, Freemasons. We got a lot to talk about.
Oh my God. I'm so excited.
I love a good conspiracy theory.
Yes, and I've always been fascinated by the symbology around our national capital there in D.C. And, people, I'm sure some people out there right now might have rolled their eyes and be like, oh my God, conspiracy theories. But there is no denying some of these symbols and some of the way Washington's laid out and some of these things. There's no denying it. It's there.
Are you ready?
I am ready to dive in.
The map of Washington, D.C., according to some conspiracy theorists, is that the entire city encodes secret symbols of the Freemasons and the occult. The city's geometry has been suspect for quite a long time. Conspiracy theorists point out the city's streets are designed in the shape of an inverted pentagram pointing down at the White House.
Oh my God, I didn't know that part.
Ed Decker wrote, quote, the satanic pentagram under which the White House sits is an open door through which Satan has access to our president.
Oh my gosh.
Others point to symbols like a hexagram, also considered like a Knights Templar cross, the Masonic square and compass streets, and plenty of other occult symbology throughout the city.
Wow, I must say, those are some pretty big symbols there just in that little bit you listed off.
Well, first, okay, many people believe the Freemasons are a front for the Bavarian Illuminati,
Okay.
or perhaps an international Jewish conspiracy,
Oh,
or maybe just pagan devil worshippers.
take your pick, right?
Right. So, I mean, there's a lot of conspiracy theories floating around about the Freemasons. We won't get into all of that right now because we're just focusing on the DC stuff, the founding fathers. Neighborhoods in Washington, D.C., such as DuPont Circle, Logan Circle, and Scott Circle, each have 6 streets intersecting, placing another 666 stamp on the city.
No. That's so metal.
Now, during the Million Man March back in 1995, I believe that was, leader Louis Farrakhan claimed the city's core, the White House, the Washington Monument, were placed based on a Masonic ritual. The mall itself is said to be laid out to replicate a Masonic lodge, incorporating many Masonic shapes, such as a point of circle, which is a multi-layer symbol in Freemasonry.
Okay.
Washington Monument is said to be an Egyptian obelisk standing at 550 feet tall, which is actually 6,660 inches. So you get the 666 again.
No way.
Yeah.
Now, there's a whole thing about obelisks worldwide being connected to one source.
There is. Yeah. I thought about mentioning that in the story, Dylan. Of course, you're always going to bring up the one thing that I didn't research.
I'm good at that.
I've noticed.
But we could talk about that some other time.
Right, because the Eiffel Tower, many consider to be like an obelisk. I guess there's like an Egyptian obelisk.
Oh, yeah.
Lots of different. Am I even saying that correctly? Obelisk.
Obelisk.
I don't know.
One of them old tall, pointy things.
Look, I'm country. I don't know.
I mean, I do find all this stuff fascinating, and you can just kind of let your mind and imagination run wild with some of these stories. So I love talking about this stuff.
Well, the Statue of Freedom, which sits atop the Capitol building, faces not west toward the rest of the United States, but east toward Egypt and Prussia.
Okay.
Or, I'm sorry, Persia. I said Prussia. What the hell? The statue was designed by Thomas Crawford, made of bronze, and crowned the dome of the Capitol building since 1863. Now, this statue depicts a female wearing a military helmet and holding a sheathed sword in her right hand with a laurel wreath and a shield in her left hand. But many people believe she's actually a representation of the goddess Isis.
Ooh.
Now, many see the Statue of Liberty also as an occult symbol, specifically in Revelation 18:23. This has been pointed out in Revelation, the book of the Bible, that there would be a woman depicting a proud, arrogant goddess who led nations astray.
That sounds like that old Lady Liberty.
Many supporters of this theory point out that liberty is often depicted using a goddess. This goddess could be Isis, Minerva, Athena, and these goddesses were goddesses of wisdom, philosophy, and civic virtue. And some say New York itself is a world-class city, this financial hub, but it also represents Babylon the Great.
Oh.
So does that make Lady Liberty the whore of Babylon?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe she's celibate.
Well, the engineer of the Statue of Liberty was Gustav Eiffel, and he gifted the statue in 1884. He also built the Eiffel Tower, which many view as an obelisk in Paris, we just mentioned. He was a Freemason. But the designer, Auguste Bartholdi, he was actually a Freemason as well. So you got these two Freemasons creating the Statue of Liberty, the engineer and also the designer. And the statue was allegedly a gift from France's Grand Orient Temple Masons to the Masons of America. That is the conspiracy theory.
Oh, they had to do like raffles and rounds of fundraising to get the Statue of Liberty built.
Did they?
Yeah, and then finally the federal government came off with a little bit of money after he had worked on it for years, and so they were able to actually finish the construction.
So the theory is that this was not a gift from France, that
Right.
It was gifts among the Masons.
Oh, so gifts them just kind of like a inside joke kind of thing.
Well, that the French Grand Orient Temple Masons gifted it to the Masons of the United States. You got these Freemasons popping up all over.
Hey, I might be a Freemason, but ain't nothing free.
So as I mentioned before, a lot of people point to the city of Washington, D.C. itself and how it was laid out with the streets. There's a lot of angles, triangles, squares, circles incorporated into the city's design.
Yeah, geometry is very, very important and used throughout in Freemasonry.
Exactly. Well, the designer of Washington, D.C. was a man named Pierre L'Enfant.
Ooh.
Now, he was not a Freemason, but Jefferson, Washington, and Andrew Ellicott, who also had a hand in helping with the city were all Masons who modified the engineer's original blueprints.
Oh, wow.
So
So you,
even though he wasn't a Mason, he had these 3 Freemasons who were kind of helping craft the city.
yeah, so he would put something together that maybe made logistic sense, and possibly they came behind him and kind of added these things that would, in the end, be very symbolic.
Yes.
Oh, interesting.
And the names Ellicott, L'Enfant, they pop up. If you take the metro in DC, there's like L'Enfant Plaza, there's Ellicott City. So these are people who have definitely made their mark in the Washington, D.C. area, and you've got multiple streets and parts of the city named after these individuals. Now, it is said that the earthly triangle of the Capitol, the Washington Monument, and the White House mirrors a triangle of stars known as the constellation Virgo. And I didn't realize, Dylan, but through my research into this, astrology plays a big part in Freemasonry.
Oh, I wasn't
Are
aware
you
of
aware
that.
of that? I was
No.
not either. Now, every August 10th, an astrological event takes place over the city sky that conspiracy theorists believe has ties to the goddess. Whether it's Isis, Athena, Minerva, I'm not sure.
Some higher power.
The goddess. The 3 stars of Virgo are visible in a straight line from the Capitol to the White House. The founders deliberately align the city with the stars. If you want to know more about this, Dylan, there's actually a book by a British author named David Oveson, and his book is The Secret Architecture of Our Nation's Capital, and he goes into depth discussing the astrological symbols and how they are incorporated into the city, and about this astrological event that you can witness every August the 10th.
Oh, wow. That sounds like a very interesting book.
With the Virgo constellation.
Yeah, I know why geometry and some of these symbols are very important to Freemasons, harkening back to the day when they were actual Masons, skilled labor, and that's how they spread. We talked about this on our
Short-lived podcast.
short-lived podcast, Batshit Crazy, which we would love to start again. But anyway, yeah, and and that's how they spread because they were so important, and you had to have Masons, and you had the different lodges, and the blah this and that. But the astrology, I find that very interesting. That's also incorporated into their beliefs and symbols.
Yeah, and I don't know a lot about it, but I do know that the zodiac plays an important role in Masonry, and there are actually 23 important zodiacs that you can see in the city, many on official buildings, and at least 1,000 zodiac symbols in paint, marble, plaster, concrete, glass, and stone facades.
See, I mean, we get to talk for 3 hours just about Masons, and obviously we're not going to do that now. But, it's really, why would they go to these great lengths to incorporate these symbols and actually change engineering plans and blueprints to make sure that these things are visually represented, or sometimes it's only mathematically represented. You don't even know, like the height and the width or the whatever adds up to this. So I'm just unless there was some kind of, you felt a very important reason for this, and it's got to be more than just you think it's cool, right? Wouldn't you think?
Well, considering that there are over 1,000 symbols in these various buildings that have to do with the zodiac, there's got to be something there, right?
Right.
Now, I understand the importance of astronomy, as that played its role in many things, especially back in the day, navigation, right? Shepherds, farmers, sailors. I mean, they look to the stars for direction, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But astrology, the zodiac signs?
Right.
It's kind of strange. I mean, nowadays, I feel like people who buy into astrology get teased a lot.
Well, yeah, and it was way more popular during certain points of our existence amongst the people, right? People made decisions off of what someone who consulted astrology told them. You know what I mean?
But I didn't know our founding fathers were into that.
No, I mean, I was aware that a lot of them were Masons, and then I was aware of some of this symbolism around D.C., and some of that stuff's pretty fascinating, but I don't know.
Here's an example, Dylan. In 1819, the car of history was carved for Statuary Hall It's featured above the door leading into like the rotunda in the Capitol building. And it shows Cleo in a chariot resting on 3 signs of the zodiac: Sagittarius, Capricorn, and Aquarius.
Okay.
The Federal Reserve Building has 12 zodiac signs on the glass rim of a large light fitting on 20th and C Street Northwest.
That's pretty interesting because, the Federal Reserve's a private entity.
Right.
So, yeah, that's interesting.
On the day the Library of Congress's cornerstone was dedicated, which was August 28th of 1890, the Sun and Saturn were in conjunction with the constellation Virgo.
Wow.
Which is believed to be like a purposeful, like they chose this date with intention.
See, that blows my mind. All this stuff blows my mind. It's certainly not by happenstance. Somebody had some reason, or it's not just like a cool joke or something like that. And then back to the Federal Reserve, J.P. Morgan and his buddies created what led to the modern day Federal Reserve, and many people believe that the early on version of the Federal Reserve actually created, not just exploited, the Great Depression.
Interesting.
Yes.
Thank you, history buff.
Oh, man. I tell you, I'll be digging in this stuff.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, the Library of Congress has several zodiac depictions within the building: the marble floor of the Great Hall and the ceiling of the Southwest Pavilion, just to name a few. If you've ever been to the Library of Congress, maybe you've seen these.
So you threatened to take me to Washington and show me around. I've never been. Haven't even been on the school trip, the horrible school trip everybody describes going on with their kids. And because you're rushed and you don't get to actually absorb and enjoy it, right? But I'm going to go. We're going to go. And I can't wait for you to point some of these things that you're describing out, because this is making me want to go even worse.
Well, I lived there, for some years.
Right.
So I feel like I'd be a good tour guide, Dylan. I can navigate you all around the city. But we definitely would need to go check out some of these buildings and check for these Freemason and occult symbols.
Yes, definitely.
Now, even years ago, before I was really, I've always been interested in conspiracy theories, but before I was like really into conspiracy theories and was living in the area, I had some coworkers who pointed out this idea that the city was laid out in the shape of a pentagram, and that there's a lot of occult and Freemason symbology throughout the city. And I was young. I was like in my early 20s and was just kind of like, oh, okay, that's weird, and didn't think much of it. But once you start digging in, there's a lot.
Now the pentagram is a very specific symbol. You know what I mean? It's not just like it happens to be a square. It's very specific. And so I think that's definitely by intention to be laid out this way, and for a reason, whatever reason it is, at least to look like a pentagram, right?
Yeah, I actually have a photo where someone has like drawn the pentagram on the streets that intersect that make this design, which I will post on social media on Instagram, so folks can go check that out if they want to look at it, or you can just Google,
Yeah.
DC, it'll pop right up.
Devil Street in DC.
Now, in 1793, George Washington laid the cornerstone of the Capitol building, and he was wearing a Masonic apron adorned with occult symbols and images of the zodiac. There's like a famous painting depicting him wearing his Mason apron.
Wow.
The rotunda of the Capitol building features a fresco called the Apotheosis of Washington, which was painted in 1865 by artist Constantino Brumidi. Now, he was a Vatican painter previously. For conspiracy theorists, the painting becomes stranger and stranger as you would stare at it. The painting features George Washington dressed in a white robe, surrounded by 13 maidens, which have been described as, that's like the 13 original colonies.
Oh, interesting.
And he's ascending a cloud above mortal man, his apotheosis, however you say that, transforming to a god.
Okay.
The goddess Minerva, along with Neptune and Vulcan, also appear in the work.
Damn, that sounds like a very grand depiction there.
It is.
Yeah.
And we'll actually post a picture of that as well. But, it's just kind of odd because you keep having these recurring themes of these gods and goddesses, the the various zodiac symbols.
Yeah, and it's not like someone had to uncover this or it's down in the, basement behind some stuff or something like that. These are all out in the open.
On
They're on
display
display,
in the
yes.
Capitol building. Yeah.
By in intent, intended to be seen. They weren't trying to hide the fact that they were Masons and stuff.
Well, other conspiracies arise from the shape of the Pentagon, which is a 5-sided shape that many say is actually a pentagram. And some believe that the infinite design of the Pentagon is a symbol of the occult.
Okay.
There's also a Masonic temple near the White House. It's the home of the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, and it's open to public tours if you want to go visit the structure, but it's located very close to the White House.
So they could go to their, what is it, the temple? It's a lodge, right? They can go hang out at the lodge, right?
Yeah, well, I guess it's a Masonic temple, a lodge, yes.
Yeah, so, well, let's just say a lot of energy has existed in that city since its inception, really, right?
Yeah.
And if there's some kind of dark influence or chaotic influence there in Washington, it would have ramifications for the entire world, right?
Well, it could, and we're actually going to get into more of that, maybe the spiritual side, if there could be a dark energy, some kind of force happening in Washington, D.C. in a future offbeat episode.
Oh, my gosh.
Possibly next week, Dylan.
Damn it. This is awesome.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'm vibrating over here.
You are?
I am.
Oh, gosh. Well, I don't know about that.
Got a chub.
Well, Washington, D.C. has 36 lodges of the Grand Lodge of Free and Accepted Masons. So in a city the size of Washington, D.C., which is not huge, you have 36 lodges.
That seems like a lot.
Does it?
I guess.
Is that excessive?
I don't know the numbers in all the other cities, but I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty interesting. I guess a lot of the local Masons feel a strong bond to the area because you do have those founding fathers who were Masons, George Washington, Ben Franklin, and many of the Revolutionary War generals were involved in Freemasonry.
Many, I always say many this and many believe that. Some people say that there is a branch of the Freemasons and the lodges and the brothers and everyone who partakes that they don't know what the real deal is, right? They just know about the tradition and, because the Masons claim to be about charitable giving and uplifting people and being like basically the best person you can be and giving back at every turn that you can. But then, you have the backroom, dark branch, those who are really in the know, who know all the bad shit, supposedly tied to the Masons.
Well, the architect James Hoban, who designed the White House, Benjamin Latrobe, who was the architect of the Capitol, the U.S. Capitol, and as we've mentioned, the designer of the Washington Monument, a man named Robert Mills, all Freemasons.
Now, interesting. I wonder if just a lot of people were Masons. You know what I mean? Like statistically, it's not that big a deal that all these people were Masons. Or if all these Masons, because all these people are in positions of power for the most part. Very influential. And even the architects and things like that. So it's just, did you have to be a Mason to, kind of come up through the ranks in these various trades and stuff? Or is just everybody was a Mason back then? I guess is what I'm saying.
It's like the who's who of the time period, maybe?
Yeah, maybe.
Well, cornerstones for all the structures that were laid after Masonic parades and dedication ceremonies include the Smithsonian Building, the National Cathedral, and the Department of Labor and Department of Commerce buildings. So there were Masonic rites used in laying the cornerstones for those buildings.
Okay.
It's pretty interesting. For the most part, Freemasons don't seek attention, And one gets the impression that no matter how public they may be as individuals, they kind of want to be left alone as Masons. A lot of people point out, so what? So what if they were Freemasons? So what if they designed the city with some of those symbols and such in mind? But then, of course, the conspiracy theorists are like, yeah, but it's got a bigger, greater meaning.
Right. Right, because some of these things, a lot of this stuff's carved out of stone, very intricate, delicate work, expensive work, by craftsmen. And so, a lot of these additions of these symbols and things, they were costly. So, why would you just keep on and on with all these thousands and hundreds of symbols or whatever, and all these grand structures? And yeah, why would you do that if it didn't have some type of deep meaning to you?
Right. It's pretty interesting. There were a lot of powerful politicians who were Masons. Of course, we know that there are probably still some pretty powerful politicians who are involved in Freemasonry, but it is such a secret society that we don't really have a grasp of like what that means for the rest of us.
Right.
And of course, the writer Dan Brown, who has written the Da Vinci Code, among others, books, and of course some of those have been made into films, has kind of a hold on some of these more modern conspiracy theories. And it's sort of, these theories have been around for a long time, but I think there's been a resurgence when Dan Brown's The Da Vinci Code was published, came out. It turned a whole new group of people onto these theories that have been circulating for, 200 years or more.
Oh, yeah, definitely. A whole new generation. People had never thought about this before, but then you maybe read his series of books and really start to dig into it for yourself. And of course, with the modern access of the internet, you can literally find a conspiracy theory about anything.
Well, the Masons seem to be more or less what they claim to be, a group of men, about 5 million of them worldwide, about half of them in the United States, who get together for fellowship and mutual betterment.
Yep.
They have actually given about $700 million a year to charities.
That's the good ones. That's the ones in the open.
Definitely anteed up a lot of money during Hurricane Katrina. So they do good deeds in the world. They have, temples and lodges in small towns. A lot of those have been forced to shut down over the years for lack of membership. It does seem that interest in being a Freemason has kind of been waning a bit. But, Masons counted a lot of early Americans of wealth and influence as members. And the group and its secret rites created such suspicion that in the late 1820s, it prompted a backlash. There was even an anti-Masonic party, a third-party movement that nearly killed off the Masons in U.S. government.
Yes. Oh, my gosh. We talked about that one time.
We did.
It was so cool.
So the legend of the Masons tracks back to the Egyptian pyramids. Builders hauled these great stones into place, and even back to biblical times when stoneworking masons took up the task of building Solomon's temple. A partially built pyramid is a symbol associated with masonry. Then, of course, some of the later legends trace the order's origins to the master masons who worked on cathedrals and churches in medieval Europe. They would kind of travel from one site to another in search of work, and they would identify themselves to local masons through these coded signs. And it was like they had a pay structure, and depending on kind of what level of mason you are, that's the pay you received. And you had to know the certain secret handshake or whatever to be like, hey, this is the level I'm to get paid.
Right.
To keep people from coming in who were not masons, who might be able to profit from these big jobs that weren't supposed to be.
Right. Before you even put your hands on tools and material, they were already filling you out to learn what level expertise you have, if you're a mason at all and not a fraudster, like you said. And that's one reason for the lodges, right, in the various towns and communities. And so they could travel around and find other brothers and, literally, bed down and start working. Because like you've pointed out, whenever they have these grand structures back all these years ago, you would have tens of thousands of workers, right, and craftsmen. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty interesting, if you look at some of the founding fathers, of course, we know the big names, George Washington, Ben Franklin, but Ethan Allen, Paul Revere, John Hancock were all big names in the American Revolution, all Freemasons. Paul Revere was actually the Grand Master of Massachusetts under the Grand Master Moses Hayes, who was like a prominent Jewish Mason of the time. And he was like the Grand Master. So, I mean, all of these big figures were part of the Freemasons. I mean, so it is kind of easy to see how their organization could influence the creation of this new nation. I mean, you had 13 Masons who signed the Constitution.
Right.
You see those Masonic symbols appearing on the Great Seal. And then, like I said, George Washington laid that cornerstone for the Capitol using a Masonic ritual and wearing a Masonic apron.
Yeah, I mean, pull the dollar bill out and look at it.
Yeah.
Right?
In 1826, there was a New York Mason named William Morgan who published a book exposing the order's secrets, and he was purportedly murdered. And so that kind of sparked this anti-Masonry movement.
Yeah, there was already suspicions, like people was like, anytime you have a group of people that are secretive in any way, they're going to get suspicious thoughts from the people that surround them, right? Even if they're not doing anything, they're just hanging out, having a good time, whatever, talking about, have similar interests. And if people don't know what you're doing, they imagine what you might be doing. And then their imagination's running wild, and there's no telling what they think you're up to. But yeah, when they killed that guy who tried to publish the book, there was already this, a bit of an attitude toward the Masons. Oh, they're secretive. We don't know what they're up to. And then, yeah, it just all hell broke loose after that, right?
Yeah. Well, what's so interesting is, so for years, these stories about the Masons and our founding fathers being involved in all of the different monuments and architecture, the illusions and lore of the Masonry appearing all over D.C. Well, when President Truman was overseeing the rebuilding of the White House in 1948, he actually ordered that all the stones with Masonic marks be put aside.
Really?
He later sent one to each Grand Lodge in the United States, saying that the stones intimately align Masonry with the formation and founding of our government. So he recognized this, like, formally.
Wow.
Publicly.
And he's also the only person to order the use of an atomic weapon in the world.
It's true.
So there's that.
Another example of Masonic imagery kind of appearing in United States lore, astronaut Buzz Aldrin was a 33rd degree Mason, and when he landed on the moon, he carried a Scottish Rite flag.
Yeah. What? I have a question.
Okay.
He's the first man on the step foot on the moon, correct?
Allegedly, unless you're a conspiracy theorist.
Who set the camera up?
I don't know.
No, I mean for real. There's a camera over there away from the pod, well away from the pod. And how did that get set up?
I don't know. Dylan, I don't have the answer for you. All I know is there's a lot of strange stuff happening in Washington, D.C. as far as the architecture goes. And many theorists out there believe it's part of an elaborate conspiracy.
Well, I don't know that whether that's true or not, but I can say there have been quite a few shenanigans come out of Washington, and this is from both parties in my lifetime. And it just seems to continue to be dumbed down, and it's like they don't even hide what they do to us, the citizens, anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the real question it comes down to, as I mentioned, yeah, of course, there's the symbology, these designs, but what does it mean? Like, what does it mean for the rest of us? Is there some master plan? Are the Freemasons as the secret society kind of driving the direction of our nation and has since, the 1700s? I mean, I think that's where conspiracy theorists haven't exactly come up with the answer.
Right.
They've got the question, but we don't have the answer. So what is the purpose of all of this?
Yeah, I mean,
Some believe it's leading toward like a new world order.
did these dudes just think this shit was cool? And they were already into it, and they were in positions that could influence these decisions about design and symbols, or is it for some other nefarious reason?
I don't know.
Oh my God!
It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, y'all.
Yeah, so that has been us just kind of lightly touching on. Of course, if you want to deep dive into this, a lot of information out there. Many books have been written, a lot of research. We don't have time to dive into all of it, but it is worth checking out if you like conspiracy theories. Like I said, we're just kind of touching on this for the podcast, but so much information.
We are, and we certainly are not experts. I'm sure someone out there may be like, "Oh no, you totally messed that part up, or you missed this." But
what else is new?
we do find it. Yeah, I know. I'm like, I don't have any details about this story, but I'm gonna tell you the story half right. And Heather's like, "Yeah, I have the details right here. Nothing you said is correct. Thanks. That's the way I operate." But reach out to us if you are very knowledgeable on these things. We would love to hear any comments, or maybe you can lead us down some other rabbit holes we don't know about. So you can reach out to us at mountainmurderspodcast@gmail.com.
That's a great way to reach us, Dylan. You can also find us on social media. We're on Twitter at Mountain Murders and Instagram at Mountain Murders Podcast. And for those who would like to support the show, you can do that for just a couple of bucks a month. Patreon.com/Mountain Murders Podcast. You'll be able to access our archive. We have so many episodes there. Bonus content, ad-free episodes. It's pretty cool. So think about checking that out. And as Dylan mentioned, drop us a line. We love getting those emails, and we try to respond to those as quickly as possible.